Hello and welcome back to Galgormhall for episode 5 of the Scratch Build series. In this episode we are looking at building the roof for that box, so let's get started. First off, the two simplest parts of it are we need two sheets of card, one that fits inside the walls of the building, which I have cut here, and that will sit snugly down in there. And then we want a second one that sits over the top of it but reaches right to the edge of the building. Okay, now what that will do is we're going to glue these two together, but what that will do when it's glued means that you can actually make the roof removable. So we need to do that, and we're going to glue those together, so we'll do that now. Now I'm going to turn this card over and you're going to see an awful lot of lines on it here, and we will come to that, but I will try and explain it as we go through the whole thing. Now with regards to, goodness me, look at my glue. Now with regards to the gluing of this, we want to make sure that it is going to sit absolutely dead center the whole way around, and for that purpose probably would be best to mark it up. So I will measure the edges, the dimensions of both cards, and work out where the center is for each. Okay, so with the outer lines drawn in, I'm now able to place that card right over it, and we can get an absolutely accurate positioning of the card to glue it into place. So we're going to use the rocket glue, and we'll just do that now. Now it's important in the case of this gluing that we get right up as close to the edge as possible. Not so important down the center, both ways. I'm not too concerned about the rest, because that will become apparent very soon as to why that's the case. But certainly the rest, we want a good bonding of glue. Okay, and then we can test fit that on the build, and that's bang on. That's fine, that's great. Right, let's look at these lines on the front, and hopefully we can follow what's going on. Initially what you want to do is to find the center line of the building on its lengthwise. So we want to find this center line, and we also want to find the center line on the horizontal of it too, and draw that out. Now with those center lines then we are going to mark out a 5mm strip, so it's 2.5 millimeters either side of the center line, and we draw that in both cases. Okay, now on the outer side of the building we are also going to do a line 5 millimeters in the whole way round the card, and then the other lines, this line here and here, will be our pitches for the roof. That's to mark where they go, and equally these 4 lines here will be for the sloping, or to support the pitch on the ends of the roof too. Now the reason we are marking out all these lines, let me show you my roof for my previous signal box. What I'm going to do with this one, with our signal box, as I did with the old one, I want to make it an open frame type construction. Because I can lift the roof off, the madness within me thought, well, it would be nice to make a feature of the roof too. And this has been done in a very similar way. You've got your center bars there, and then you've got an outer edge too. And what it's doing is allowing you to see the fittings in up underneath. And like I say, it just adds a little something. It's completely unnecessary, and obviously you could avoid this aspect of the build completely if you wish to, but it was just, like I say, in my madness I felt it was something worth doing, and that's what we're trying to replicate here. So those are the lines. Hopefully you can follow that well enough. Now once those are all marked out, what we need to do is to cut out the 4 rectangles that are left. So that in that case it is this here, this here, this here, and this here. And this is why I was ensuring that we have a good run of glue around both the outer edges and across the middle, because those are the braces that are going to be left. The rest of it's getting cut out, so it makes little odds. Okay, I've gone on and I've cut out those 4 squares as I identified, and I've also drilled out a hole in the center here which will accommodate the LED bulb whenever it gets fitted. One word of warning: pay attention whenever you're cutting. You may be able to see there, I laid the ruler along this edge here and started running back and forth with the knife right from one end to the other, forgetting that I needed to keep these center bits. So I did nick into that a little bit, but fortunately with it being 2 layers I didn't go right the way through. So yeah, just a word of warning on that. With that done, it's a matter now of putting our apex parts of the card in to hold the roof. Now they need to be the full length of, or the full width of the roof, and according to the drawings they're 20 millimeters in height. So that is a very simple thing. Just cut those out and we'll pop a drop of rocket card glue on and we'll put those into place. Now what we can then do is take a smaller strip of card and we're going to put it between these 2 bits here. Now if you're not installing a light, you could and you should run a strip of card to the base, but because I have the light going in here, I do need to make allowances for that and leave a bit of a void in underneath to allow all the wiring and the gubbins to come up from underneath. Right, that's the easy one done. Now we need to do the diagonals on the corner, and what we're going to have to do is, if we mark up the point there and the point there at the pitch, I can then cut that out. Right, we cut that out and we're taking it just to the left of the pitch on the roof. It's not going right to the center because we do need the other one to go in too. Hopefully you can see that there. It's just to the left of the center. Now with that one there, we should be able to use it as a template for the other 3. Make out 4 of those and then we have our supports for the entire building. So I'll cut them out and then we'll get them glued into place. Okay, with the supports now glued and cured, we can look at applying the rooftop itself to this part of the building. Let's put it back onto the box. And what we want to do is take a piece of card. Now you want your card to be larger than the area of one side of the roof. And if we take the card and put it up, and we're just sort of lining it up with the center at the apex of the roof, and I'm overlapping it just ever so slightly. so that whenever we bring the other side up, they will meet nicely in the middle. And then I'm marking a pencil line here just on the outer side of this support, and then the same again on this side too. Now if we hold that in place and take the roof off, we can then draw a line along the diagonal supports on either side. And that will give us the basic shape for one part of the roof. Now we need to cut these, and I'm cutting them just inside, about 1 millimeter inside the line. I don't want them to be where we have drawn the line is to the outer edge of this support here, but I want it more on the inside edge or just touching it. These supports here are to support the end pieces of the roof rather than the side pieces, if that makes sense. Okay, now if we put this back onto the box and lay this back up again, we can then work out how much over the edge of the roof we'd like this to extend. Now these boxes were designed with a roof that extended quite a bit out over the windows, and that created like a visor for whenever the rare bit of sunshine that we get in the UK comes about, that it stopped the signalman from being blinded from that sun. So I'm going to extend it out about 5 or 6 millimeters from the edge of the box, and I'll mark it at one side. I measure the length of this against the edge, and then I can mark it down here on the same side so that both edges are exactly the same. So with that cut, we can then cut that edge off. But what we want to do is to cut it at an angle, approximately a 45-degree angle or so. So we're going to run a craft blade down at that angle. Now what cutting at that angle does is means whenever we have it on the roof, we have a nice straight edge to the edge of the roof that makes it easier to fit the guttering at a later date. We also need to repeat that process on the upper side of it too. Just again, that will allow the two parts of the roof to join nicely together. So I have two of these cut now, front and back, and we should be able to take them and meet them up in the middle. And then we can glue them into place. The final piece of the jigsaw then is to get our two end pieces. So if we measure this point to this point here, in this case here it's 60 millimeters, and then if we just take a piece of card or anything that you have at hand, if you had an extra ruler that would work just as well of course, and we just sort of make that an edge, and then I measure from the peak of the roof to the edge of the card at the bottom. That will give my measurement from the center going up. So in my case here it is 36 millimeters. So I need to mark that out on my card. Now what I've done already is to angle this piece of card ready for it so that it ties in with the edges here, and that will be our end piece of roof. Now to cut these, if we cut them similar to the base of it, we want to cut it at a 45-degree angle. It'll just help it slot itself in much easier around this edge. Okay, let's take this and we'll marry it up to see how well it fits. Now, it's not too bad. There may be the slightest bit of gap in it, but that isn't critical because we are going to be cladding this in Plasticard tiles, but as long as we get the shape of it more or less accurate, we're bang on. With these now dried, the final piece of this puzzle is to put on the roof tiles. What we are going to use are more Slaters sheets, and this is their roof tile sheet. Now, Slaters do two types of sheet. There's this one here where you can see there's a row of tiles and then there's a plain strip in between, and that's the one we're going for. Now, to use them, basically you cut them into single strips like this, and then what you do is you place one on, and then you take your next strip whenever you come to it and you place it over the plain strip, and remembering to stagger your tiles sort of halfway between the previous row as you go up. But what you also find is, because you're placing the first one flat onto the card, hopefully you can see there, this bottom one is flat to it and then the other one is sitting up, and you get that sort of odd angle going on, which is more pronounced whenever you see the whole thing, where basically you've got the tile sitting like that and then the bottom tile is sitting at a steeper angle. So to rectify that, what we'll do first is to add a basic plain strip, thin strip of Plasticard around the bottom edge first, and then that'll give us something to rest the bottom row of tiles up against, and we'll keep everything at the same length. Now, because this is a hipped roof, it's a little bit more complicated too, because we've got to do our angular cuts. But what we'll do first is we'll glue that in place, let it dry, and then we can come back with a craft knife and cut at the edge, and we can repeat it the whole way round until we come to the end. And that's probably the bit where you're going to have to do a wee bit of trimming before you actually sort of glue it into place. Right, let's get going with this then. So I'll add a wee drop of Acrylic glue just to this, and I can run a bit of it through that, slightly less messy, slightly I say. And I'm making a point of overhanging it at that end so that I can trim it at a later date. Now, this can be a wee bit of a slow process, and I'm certainly not going to show you the entire application of these tiles along here, but what we'll do is I'll do this one here and I'll glue that in place, and then we'll apply our first row of tiles above that. So we'll go with the little strip of tiles next. I find the contact, it can be just as effective on this rather than working just with the rocket card glue all the time. The contact, it tends to go off a little bit quicker, so I'll run a bead of that there, and then a very fine bead of rocket card glue just in behind. And we'll try and overlap that, hang that over the edge just ever so slightly, just to help with the finish. And once you get that first one on, the rest of them should go on very easily. It's just a matter of making sure that you've made that as straight as possible along there. If you don't make it too straight, the further up you go on your roof, the more pronounced that's going to be. And that's basically it. And we'll do the same process the whole way around, and we'll right to the very top. And I'll come back to you whenever I've that done. I'm sure you don't want to watch me applying tiles the whole way through this. It is a very repetitive process, but it's got to be done. Okay, job done, or more or less job done. There's a couple of little details that I'd still want to add to this, but we will come back to that in the next episode. This one's gone on long enough. But just to say, when building it, you will probably find that you will have a few gaps, particularly at the join lines. Don't worry about those. Those will be addressed next time round whenever we add our capping to the building. Next week, or in the next episode, we will also look at adding the guttering and the downspouts, and we'll finally look at the interior of the building too. Thank you very much again for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you have any comments, please do leave them below. And if you're not a subscriber of the channel and you would like to follow the progress of the building of Galgormhall, please click that subscribe button. But for now, once again, thank you very much, and I'll catch you again soon.